Hi, I'm Billy Mitchell with FedScoop TV. Today I'm here with Frank Baitman, the CIO of HHS. How are you, Frank?
I'm doing great, Billy. How are you today?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Today we're at the Brocade Federal Forum and we want to talk a little bit about what they call breaking the status quo. And so my first question for you today is, what kind of things are you seeing driving innovation in IT in 2015?
There are so many things.
Yeah.
Whether we talk about the cloud or as a service offerings, I think infrastructure, platform, and certainly software as a service are going to be big changes for the future. So moving to the cloud, everything that does to your network and the way you begin to think about things changes as well when you talk about software as a service.
Sure. And continuing with that network modernization, I was wondering, how is it changing for federal agencies and how they manage the network itself and also their ability to manage and control that network?
So, one of the problems, the dirty little secrets we have in government,
Sure,
is that our networks are large and federated and what some might say fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving in a direction, and I think FITARA may help in that regard.
Sure.
We're moving in a direction that's going to allow us to have better visibility into our network, and that's going to make lots of positive changes in terms of what we buy, how we buy it, and how we manage it. What security we put in place on that network as well.
Awesome. Speaking a little bit about potentially your best practices and maybe some others that you've heard around industry and maybe throughout the federal government, what kind of best practices are you seeing in terms of things like server storage, virtualization, maybe even Internet of Things? It's the big buzzword right now.
It is, and that's driving lots of changes in networks, the Internet of Things, and just thinking about your network is in fact going to be entirely different than it has been in the past. We've thought about networks as impermeable, where they're not impermeable, and we know that very well. So you need to begin to architect the network in layers so that there are various places where you can get in, and you don't get much further each time. And that's one of the changes. Another change is beginning, as you mentioned, with Internet of Things. So we need to begin thinking about all those things that we connect to our network. Yeah. It isn't just going to be those clients that we carry around called cell phones or laptops. It's going to be thousands of devices, and ultimately individuals are going to be connected in many different ways to their business network.
Interesting. And I remember you mentioned FITARA a little bit earlier, and we were talking a little bit how the data moving through networks is changing a little bit, but I wanted to know your perspective on, how can the federal government plan a little bit better? You mentioned FITARA and acquisition, but do you have any tips or what you see coming for better acquisition in IT planning?
So in terms of infrastructure, that's one of the areas we're focusing on at HHS. So we have a lot of infrastructure, as you might imagine. That infrastructure does different missions across the enterprise. When you think about NIH, for example, NIH collaborates extensively with research organizations, universities around the world.
Sure.
That requires one sort of network, one way of thinking. FDA is a regulatory body, and FDA has to support, for example, lots of inspectors who go out in the field who are connected back to that network. You have to take each one of those into account, understand the missions of the organization, and I think, getting back to FITARA, I think we can look at that from an enterprise perspective and say, where are there similarities and where are there differences across the enterprise, and how do we re-architect our network so that it takes us into the future but meets the mission needs?
Makes sense. Well, Frank, that's all I have for you today. I appreciate you answering those questions and hanging out with me.
I'm happy to do it, Billy.
Cool. I'm Billy Mitchell with FedScoop TV. Thanks for watching.